If you are experiencing foundation issues, get a free estimate from Ox Foundations.
It is 3 minutes before the hour. We're joined by Frank C. Banks, Jr., owner of Historical and Military Museum, and he's partnering with the Comer Museum here in Sylacauga with artifacts and that kind of stuff. And Frank is a military veteran, a Vietnam veteran. Frank, good morning to you, and thank you for your service to our country, sir.
Good morning. Thank you.
Tell us a little bit how you got to Sylacauga, Alabama with this.
Well, I worked in the steel industries after I got out of service, and I worked around the country at different steel mills, going from one to the other. I did business down here in Birmingham a lot of times. When it came time to retire, I retired in Alabama. And I brought this museum with me. I had a place in Pelham for 5.5 years, and fortunately we had to move out of there. The man that owned the building went bankrupt or something like that. And anyway, we contacted other cities around all over the state to try to locate the museum permanently, and we met with this Comer Museum, and all the board members come to my house and talk to me. And
had you been here before?
Have I been?
Had you been here before at the museum at all?
Yes. I was, when I first came here, I've been here about 20 years. When I first came here, I visited the Comer Museum. And I went back to them and talked to them, and they were kind of excited about having it come in there. And for the last month and a half, I guess, we've been working to rearrange everything to get it in there, and hopefully we'll be opening up here in mid-February.
What is the Historical and Military Museum? What is this?
Well, it's a collection of military items ranging from the Spanish-American War up in the present. A lot of uniforms, different countries, not just the United States, but I have them from Russia, Japan, Germany, England, Sweden,
How do you come up with all this? How do you get your hands on this?
Well, a lot of things came from my travels in the steel business, traveling around to different places. I went and bought items for steel mills, and I also had a business of my own where I located new and used equipment for companies, and they would always lead me on to something else. And when people found out I had this collection, they contacted me, or I'd find something in a sale or whatever, and I bought it. And
now, you're originally from what, Delaware?
Delaware, yes. I was born and raised in Delaware on the East Coast, and after high school, I joined the military. And after the military, I just started traveling around the country with the steel mills.
Talk a little bit about your time in the military. I know you're a Vietnam veteran. Talk about it just a little bit.
Well, I started out as what they call an AQ, which is, I was in the Naval Air, attached to a F-4 Phantom Jet Squadron, the Jolly Rogers, skull and crossbones insignia. My first deployment was the end of what they call the Westpac cruise. The USS Independence, which I was aboard, and VF-84 was already in Vietnam, and I caught the last tail end of it, the 3 months there. There was a problem we were having with an airplane that every time it landed, everything was okay. But But when they went up, they were having problems. And
That's not a good place to have problems.
right. And I thought I knew what it was. And the Phantom Jet is a two-seater airplane. And you have to be an officer to fly. And I wasn't an officer. Well, they gave me a field commission and to put me in the airplane to go up. Well, here I thought I was going to go up, fly around the ship at 10,000 feet and come back.
Wow.
And when I got up, I found out, no, that we were fueled and loaded with bombs.
Oh, my goodness.
And we went on a mission. And I'm 18 years old.
Goodness.
And I've already been through flight training and everything. And so I knew the operation of the plane and all. And the
So you weren't told, though?
Ejection seat. I wasn't told I was going on a mission. I just thought I was going to go fly above the ship. That didn't happen. We went over and did a mission, dropping bombs and things like that, and come back. Of course, we were being shot at because we're at treetop level. Got that back to the ship. I changed the parts that I was sure that was the problem, but I had to test it again. So I had to go back up again, found out, here we go again. And when I come back, after that, I was shaking the whole time I was up there. Mm-hmm. I didn't know if I was going to live or die. And when I landed, I went to my commanding officer and I said, let me go back to my original rank. And I resigned my commission because I said, I didn't come here to die. And
there was a lot of death in the Vietnam era.
There was a lot of death, and a lot of people. We lost pilots. There was just lot of friends. I had a lot of friends that were in the Army that lost their lives, missing in action, everything. I don't like to go into that.
So you get out of the military, and you actually started collecting when you were a young kid, right?
Right. Yeah, I collected when I was 14, but that was in Hollywood and rock and roll memorabilia because I grew up around Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, which was American Bandstand at the time. And I was a regular member to American Bandstand, and I could get all the autographs of all the coming stars, singers and everything. And I amassed a collection of 21,000 items over the years. When I moved to Alabama, with that, I had a museum up in Washington State. And when I came to Alabama, I found out that wouldn't go over in Alabama. Unless it, I was told, unless it had something to do with Bear Bryant, it wouldn't go over. So I started dispersing of that. And besides, it got harder and harder to deal with people because I'm sorry to say that some of the stars were getting harder and harder. It's like you owed them a living. It was harder to get to them and talk to them. So I went in. I was already starting the military stuff.
Who's some of the stars that you did talk to down through the years, though?
Oh my gosh, there's thousands of them.
Wow.
Cher was one of my
really
closest ones because we were born the same time, same day. We had birthday. Actually traded birthday greetings with her. She would give me articles of stage clothing and all that. Yeah. But I've met all the old Western stars. The older the actor or something, the kinder, nicer they were. They would spend the day with you.
Yeah. Different era now, ain't it?
Yeah.
We're talking with Frank Banks Jr., who's a military veteran and owner of the Historical and Military Museum. Other than you being in the military, why did you choose to go into this type of collection?
Well, I found it interesting meeting the people that had something to do with it, the items. It was very interesting to hear the stories that they had. I'm talking to World War II vets, Korean vets, and veterans from Vietnam and all. But their stories that they had that they were telling me about got me interested. And I also found out that kids nowadays aren't being taught that in school, the history. And I made it part of my goal was, and I say that in my speeches at the museum, is my main goal was to teach kids about history. A lot of them don't know their past history. A lot of them have things wrong. A lot of parents don't know about past history. A lot of them have things wrong. And I'm trying to straighten some of the things out and teach the kids. I get excited when I see the looks on their kids' face and how excited they get about seeing different things.
Give us a miniature history lesson this morning, something that maybe you teaching kids and adults that they've had wrong or didn't know. What would be a highlight or two?
Well, one of the main things that people get wrong is about the Civil War and what the Civil War was fought for. And I have a large collection of Abraham Lincoln memorabilia and actual pieces from that era. And a lot of it's to do with the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. And I have photographs of the conspirators. I have a dress that a lady was wearing. She was 18 years old. She was from Michigan City, Indiana. And her mother was killed in a fireworks accident. Her father sent her to Washington, D.C., to her cousin's house, who was General Sherman, to get away from get away from the area. So the mourning stage, I guess back then they can mourn for a year to 2 years. Well, she wore this dress, all the time mourning, and he thought that if she got away from the area, that she would get over it faster. Well, General Sherman sent her to Ford's Theater that very night, the famous night. She was sitting in the box next to Abraham Lincoln. And in a letter she wrote describing what would happen, she didn't watch this play. She looked at Abraham Lincoln. She was so enthralled about Abraham Lincoln being there, she just watched him. She actually saw John Wilkes Booth come in to the box and put the gun up to his head. But at first she thought it was a attendant of the theater. And next thing you know, the president was shot. Mary Todd yelled out that the president has been shot, and he slumped over onto Mary Todd. And General Rathburn and his fiance were sitting alongside of Mary Todd, and General Rathburn, jumped up, fought with Booth, and of course, the story of Booth jumping off the box onto the stage. The lady, her name is Harriet Sherman, and she later on married to Van Pelt, so it's Harriet Sherman Van Pelt, but she was Harriet Sherman at the time. She had to go back to school, and she didn't stay in Washington. She had to go back to Michigan City. Well, then she was picked to ride with the body of Abraham Lincoln and Willie on the train to Springfield, from Michigan City to Springfield, where they were to be buried. And I met people that knew people, and so forth, through history that led me to the family. And I talked to a granddaughter, and they were talking to me about the dress and everything, and we had talked for a long time, and all of a sudden it stopped. Our speaking and emailing and things like that, and then I get a call from the great-granddaughter that I have something left for me in the will. And
really?
She was the executor of her grandmother's estate, so she didn't know who I was or what it was in the box. But she said, it's in the will that I get this. And she said, I'm sorry, but I opened the box up to see what it was, and it's a dress. Well, I knew what it was. She didn't. And
it's an amazing
that's
story.
how I received that. Also, like I say, many things from the assassination, photographs and stories of what actually took place, bits and pieces. I have Lincoln's hair, Mary Todd's hair. I'm the largest collector of historical hair in the South. But I also have a piece of the gallows that the conspirators hung on. And there's a story about that.
Yeah.
And I have some things from Kennedy Assassination. I have
What stands out to you about that?
the Kennedy Assassination.
What is something that you gleaned out of that?
Who did it? Everybody wants to know who did it. I did a 10-year study on it. I have an idea. I don't know when it's ever going to come out. It was supposed to come out this year. Carolyn Kennedy was supposed to come out with the answer to it, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah. You know, today, of course, is Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. Any studies on that as of yet?
Yes, I talked to Coretta King and Dexter King on the steps of the courthouse in Atlanta when they were going in to testify for James Earl Ray, that he did not kill Martin Luther King. I asked her who did it, and she says she couldn't tell me because of the ongoing court things. But they were testifying in James Earl Ray's behalf. I have a painting that James Earl Ray did for me, and one that his wife did for me. James Earl Ray is not a very good artist, but his wife is a pretty good artist. But who shot Martin Luther King? I don't know. There's theories, but according to Mrs. King, it wasn't James Earl Ray.
Wow. Frank C. Banks Jr., our guest this morning. He's the owner of Historical and Military Museum. Now, you're going to open up in the museum when now?
Probably middle February.
Okay.
It's slower than we thought because my wife and I are.
You got a lot of stuff too, don't you?
We got a lot of stuff, and getting it in there, getting it moved in, and getting it arranged and everything, and rearranging and everything, and our backs aren't as good as it used to be. We're not as young as we used to be, so it's taken us longer. And the museum staff there is helping us. the executive director of the museum, Donna Renford, she's been a great help, and so some other people in the museum.
What will be an area of the museum that would be something that most people would be interested in, you think, as far as your memorabilia and stuff is concerned?
Well, the biggest draw of the museum has been in the past is the Lincoln things and the Kennedy assassination part, things that went with that. And the other things are, well, they're in the Lincoln things, the Kennedy things. There's several different items in this museum that you'll never find anywhere else in the world. This will be the only place you could see them. So no matter if you're 10 or 100 years old, you'll never see them anywhere else.
Now, are you available to speak to groups about this? Or?
Yes, yes, yes. I'm planning to be in there most of the time, with the exception of doctor's visits. But I'm planning to be taking tours through there. We are looking. We need help for tours. For retired people or something that want to volunteer a couple hours a day or whatever. Anytime we can get, to help us do tours, because the museum's working hard to rearrange the entire museum. Now they're redoing the whole museum to make room for this stuff, and this is not a one-time thing. This is just part of my collection that's gone in there. There's a whole lot more that'll be going in at different times, to change up things, to see different things at different periods of time. Now, I've made arrangements that when I pass on, that the museum retains ownership of this stuff.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Frank Banks Jr., military veteran and owner of the Historical and Military Museum, which is located here at the Coleman Museum on Broadway, the museum is one of the most visited parts of our city, and lots of tours and stuff go through there.
Yes, and we want to make this throughout the United States, not just Sylacauga. This belongs to the city of Sylacauga and surrounding communities. We want everybody to be able to come in. It's free to the public, but we want word to get out and see if we can get it across the United States. How many people we can get in from all over the place?
Fantastic. Do you have a website or anything like that?
Not as yet.
Okay.
Yeah, because of the change off of the other place we have.
So people can get in touch with you through the museum?
Yes.
Okay.
They can get in touch with me there, or I did an interview a couple weeks ago with Sylacauga News on SylacaugaNews.com. They can look up. There's another interview there. We talked about and see some of the items that are in the museum.
Before we go this morning, and we appreciate Frank Banks Jr. for being with us on the show this morning, and the very intriguing historical and military items that will be available for viewing at the library coming up in the month of February probably. And you see all the turmoil and uneasiness in our country today. As a military veteran who fought for this country, how do you see the United States of America at this point in life?
I think there's going to be a big change in the United States and the way we live compared to what we have done in the past. I hope there's some good that comes out of it, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I personally know President-elect Biden. He was from Delaware.
Yep.
He was my first attorney. And I won't go into more about it. But what I don't like is what happened during the riots around the country and the tearing down of monuments, historical monuments.
Yeah.
Be it whether you like it or not.
That's history that's destroyed.
That's history you're tearing down, and you know, it isn't a black and white thing or anything like that. I mean, Abraham Lincoln, all he did for people, and they're tearing his monuments down. It isn't like he was a Confederate general or something like that. But no matter what, those people fought for what they believed in at the time. Just like we fought in Vietnam for what we believed in, and the soldiers today in Afghanistan and all those other countries over there. You know, they're fighting for what they believe in to make peace on earth and make America strong.
Yeah.
And it's just seems like it's crumbling down around us.
Yeah. Before we go this morning, we appreciate Mr. Banks for being here this morning, military veteran and owner of Historical and Military Museum, which will be locating in the Comer Museum in the month of February. Before we go, I got to ask you this. What is your favorite of the Historical and Military Museum? What's your favorite collection?
I get asked that all the time. And I really don't have, it's hard to pick something that's the favorite. They're all very interesting. Of course, I have a display of my family back to the Civil War in there. We were all military, and you know, the favorite things, I can't pick one.
Yeah, okay.
One favorite. There's too many of them.
All right. Mr. Banks, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you.
And thank you for your service to our country. And
Thank you
for providing historical and military information at the museum so that my grandkids and great-grandkids can glean the real truth about history.
Yes, I hope everybody can come away with something and come back time and time again. As my wife says, she's been through it, seeing this stuff all the time, and she says when she looks through the cabinets and everything, she always finds something that she hadn't seen before.
Fantastic. Mr. Frank Banks, Jr., Historical and Military Museum. He's partnering with the Comer Museum here in Sylacauga. You're going to see some great artifacts. You're going to see some great collections of history. And again, we appreciate Mr. Banks for joining us this morning. Got more Daybreak coming up right after you watch this.